Welcome to the Radio Horror Show here in WCW. If you're not catching the audio version of this interview, hopefully you can catch the video of us staring at each other in boxes. I will forgive James for being a New York Yankees fan, as I am a Boston Red Sox fan, and we will probably have to have a duel in just a few moments. But thank you for coming on the show to talk about the Kolchak the Night Stalker revisited anniversary redoing of a classic book, but not redoing the story, but adding something unique to it. James, thank you so much.
No, thank you. Every time someone mentions my hat, it's always a Boston Red Sox.
How's that 24 years of paying for players that don't win a World Series going for you? Did you see what we just won?
No.
The Boston Celtics?
Oh.
Yeah.
I don't really follow basketball, but yeah.
Oh, okay. That's okay. That's okay.
I'm not going to get into the Knicks.
No, yeah, definitely don't compare the two.
I mean, it has been strange. Yeah, I think this is the longest time between World Series for the Yankees.
2000 was the last time you guys won? And you've been
2009.
You won in 2009?
Yeah, with A-Rod, yeah.
Oh, okay. I thought it was like 2000 last time you won.
No.
Oh, okay.
15 years. It's
15. Oh, see, that's how much I follow the Yankees. But I digress. What type of baseball fan was Kolchak the Night Stalker? Because I do remember him being in the sports.
Well, I think there was an episode when they were in Chicago, and I remember they were talking about the Cubs. So, but I don't know if he was a Cub. I mean, he's originally from New York.
Yeah. Okay.
So Kolchak is in his biography. He's born in New York in the 1920s. So, I mean, it's never verified, but I would guess he'd be a Yankee fan.
Ah, damn it.
And Darren McGavin, of course, was in one of the best baseball movies. He was in The Natural.
I've never seen The Natural.
You've never seen The Natural?
No, I've never seen Hoosiers. By the way, I'm a huge fan of Gene Hackman. I've never seen Hoosiers.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
You've seen Superman, though, right?
Yeah, of course I've seen Superman.
You got to see The Natural, though. The Natural is it's probably the top 3 best baseball movies of all time.
Can you name what really obscure comic book movie Darren McGavin was in?
Comic book movie?
Yes.
I don't know.
It involves a star-spangled hero.
Was he in the Captain America movie?
From 1990.
With Salinger?
Yeah, with J.D. Salinger's son.
I didn't know he was in that.
Yeah, he plays Ronnie Cox's, who's the president of the United States in that, from
really?
Beverly Hills Cop and RoboCop. He plays his Secretary of Defense, I think, or his cabinet, like his advisor, but in fact he's actually working for the Red Skull.
Oh, I've never seen the whole thing. I only seen
Yeah, he works for the Red Skull because later on he's reporting to the Red Skull about the president's movements, and then later on when he runs into him in the castle, he goes, "Oh, the compound is secure, Mr. President." He goes, I think he calls him Mr. Secretary. You're not going to be able to weasel away out of this one. He goes, "Oh no," and then he punches him in the face. And I was like, "That's Kolchak the Night Stalker." Or actually, I think I only knew him as Pops from the Christmas Story. But honestly, yeah. I think in my memory, my mom pointed out to me that he was Kolchak the Night Stalker. And the X-Files, when I first saw that on VHS, because I got it from a store going out of business, and they had selling all the VHS tapes, and they had Captain America. And it was like, how much is Captain America? I wanted to see this so badly, and they sold it to me. So I took it home and watched it with my mom, and she pointed out to me that he was this character called Kolchak the Night Stalker. And my memory might be fuzzy, but I swear I think that's when my mom first introduced me to Kolchak the Night Stalker. And I think it was also now beginning to start rerunning on the Sci-Fi Channel, because 92, 93 is when the Sci-Fi Channel started, and they were definitely rerunning Kolchak the Night Stalker. Because that's where I first encountered it, along with reruns of Spider-Man, the original 70s show, which, by the way, I was just at a convention here in Framingham, Massachusetts. Nicholas Hammond was at. He was Spider-Man on that show.
I know, and I love that. That was one of my favorite shows when I was a kid. That and the Shazam show.
That's who else was there. They were sitting next to each other. There's a print that you could buy at the con. It has Captain Marvel shaking hands with Spider-Man, and it's the actor who played Captain Marvel.
Yeah, I found him. He's on Twitter.
Yeah. Yeah, he was at the con next to Nick. So Spider-Man and Captain Marvel sitting side by side to each other at
Yeah,
this convention.
they might have aired in the afternoon back. So yeah, that was awesome. I mean, all that stuff, and now you look back and it was so cheesy, but also at that time, the Captain America at that time, if you remember, who he drove a motorcycle,
Yes,
and
the god awful Evil
he had
Knievel
the shield
costume
on
in the first
the
film.
motorcycle.
Yeah, which has some horror roots because in the second movie, Death Too Soon, Christopher Lee was the villain.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah.
So, and that did air on the same time as Kolchak the Night Stalker, the TV series. So this, before we get more into the TV show, let's talk about the book that you're doing. So you're adding illustrations to the classic Jeff Rice book, right? That's basically what the Kickstarter is.
Yeah, I mean, we're adding illustrations and we're adding some essays. We have a forward by David Dasmalkian and
Oh, that guy, God,
by Rodney Barnes.
he is
Yeah.
the new fan favorite of the geeks because of all the things he does. I hope his Count Crowley gets made into something live action sometime.
Yeah, he's really awesome, and he is a super horror fan and a super Kolchak fan. We just watched Late Night with the Devil for like the third time because now my wife's obsessed with it.
Oh, isn't that movie awesome?
Yeah, and I love it, and that's a whole '70s thing too,
Did you
which is
order
really cool.
the thing from Underground Video or Umbrella Video? You get the VHS tape of the actual broadcast, but without all the movie stuff added in.
Oh, but I've seen that.
Yeah, I said for about 3 months that that was the best horror movie to come out this year until I saw humanist vampire seeking consenting human suicide victim. It's a French Canadian horror movie that is played at the
Yeah,
Brado Theater. It is awesome. It is a fantastic movie. It's a vampire girl. She's like 2018 or whatever, but she's supposed to be like 65 years old. You know what I mean? Age slowly kind of thing. So she's like a naturally born vampire with vampire parents and things like that.
okay.
Not a bitten vampire. And she doesn't know how to get her fangs to come out. It's like kind of like a
Oh,
like an allegory for, I guess, puberty of some kind or something like that. But she meets this kid and she starts stalking him. And when she accidentally pushes him into a shipping container and he's bleeding. Her fangs come out, but she gets all freaked out about it or whatever. It seems like the only time her fangs want to come out is whenever she's in danger or she's about to kill. And she
right.
doesn't like that. She doesn't want to be that kind of vampire. And she mostly sucks on like blood bags. And her parents send her to go live with her cousin, who's like a crazy freaking vampire who bites some guy who's a complete and utter douchebag. And long story short, it's got a lot of heart to it. It's very funny. It's very dark when it needs to be. And I was just like, I think this is competing with the Devil movie because they both kind of came out in 2023 independently, but then now they're hitting the mainstream.
Right.
So but back to Kolchak. So who's the illustrator in this book?
Russ Braun.
Okay, and what has he done before?
He's done The Boys.
Okay, The Boys, like the TV show.
Yeah, the TV show when it was
The comic book, yeah, the by Garth Ennis, right? I'm familiar with the comic book. I've only read up to issue 25 or 30. Can't remember the last time I.
Yeah, he did later on in the run. He did a pretty long run with The Boys. He did Swamp Thing with Nancy Collins a few years.
Nancy Collins is actually in that Bernie Wrightson documentary I told you about.
Right, yeah, Swamp Thing. So yeah, so Bernie Wrightson. So yeah, so actually that's how I came to know that Russ Braun was a big Kolchak fan because Nancy Collins was in the Kolchak graphic novel that I did a couple of years ago, and she said, "Oh, when I was doing Swamp Thing with Russ, we snuck Kolchak into the Swamp Thing comic," and she showed me some panels. So this is a thing with a lot of horror fans who are horror or comic book writers and artists. They sneak in Kolchak a lot
Uh-huh.
into the comics, unofficially. Because Rodney Barnes did the same thing with Philadelphia. He had snuck in Kolchak, and I think David Avalone had recently snuck in Kolchak in an Elvira comic.
I would love to see them get the copyright for Kolchak or borrow it or whatever to do that Elvira meets Kolchak thing. They're doing like Elvira meets H.P. Lovecraft right now. I haven't read that one. I read a couple of those Elvira books that Diamond's put out. They're not. They're okay.
I've talked to David about that. He said he would do it. It's possible that we'll see Kolchak appearing officially in some of these comic books.
So were you the editor behind the 50th anniversary Kolchak book that came out on Kickstarter 2 years ago?
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. I found out there was a not John Ostrander, John, was Superman artist.
Oh, Jerry Ordway?
Jerry Ordway
Yeah.
did an alternate cover for that. Unfortunately, I missed it. I was like, damn it, or whatever. I got the other one. However, my copy came in, it was damaged in
Oh,
water, and part of the book had gotten soaked in something. And I tried contacting the people on Kickstarter to find out if I can get a replacement, and I don't know who responded, but they were not, they weren't having it.
but the Kolchak thing?
Yeah.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, I was gonna send them back my copy to be like, here's the damaged copy I got from you guys. Can I get an actually better copy?
No,
But
I'll send you a copy. I'll
whoever
send
ran
you
the
a copy.
Kickstarter responded. They couldn't. They said it was too late or something. I don't know.
Oh, I don't know.
Yeah. So I have a damaged copy from that Kickstarter.
I'll
Uh,
get you a copy.
I appreciate that now that I have you on. But yeah, double wrap it in styrofoam or something like that. I don't know. I don't know what happened. Probably, I think it shipped in like December or something like that. So maybe there have been snow. I don't know. The mailman obviously can be the biggest blame for it. You never know. How many illustrations are in this Jeff Rice book?
We're gonna have at least 6 now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Did you want more? 6? I mean, how many pages is the main book? I have the original book in like that hardcover that came out a few years
So
ago.
maybe a little over, like maybe 250 pages or something. It's like 60,000 words.
Okay. Did you
Kind of.
want more illustrations? Is it a matter of like the budget?
We might, you know, we'll have to see. I mean,
Okay.
because even in the book, there's just a few really, I feel like, iconic scenes. Because a lot of it is also just culture, kind of doing a lot of research and talking to people. So I don't know, so I don't want to go too far with the illustrations if they just like, culture just, at a press conference
Right. Right.
like that, So I think 6 is good. But yeah, I mean, we'll see. I mean, and maybe we'll do 7 or 8.
And you
Yeah.
blew your goal out of the water because you're at 71. The counter changed while we were farting around with the internet connection or whatever. I
Oh
was
yeah,
watching the Kickstarter and the counter went.
I love that.
So that must make you happy. But yeah, you blew your goal of like $11,000 out of the water. You're up to $71,000
Oh
now.
yeah, yeah. I mean, it's doing really well, and so I'm really happy about that. And the first campaign did over 100K, so I really didn't think we'd ever get anywhere near that again.
Who
You know,
owns the Kolchak license?
well, the literary rights were owned by Jeff Rice.
Okay,
The
yeah.
he had always owned the literary rights to it. Uh,
Oh,
Somehow because this started as a book. So he had written the book first, but it wasn't published. So then that's when he sent it to Richard Matheson's agent, Richard Matheson, the legendary horror writer,
right.
who ended up writing the first 2 Kolchak TV movies.
Yeah.
That's how it began. He sent the manuscript to the agent for representation, and then they ended up selling it then to the studio to make these TV movies. And then the book didn't come out until almost 2 years after the first TV movie came out, and then
Uh
the
huh.
second TV movie already came out as well,
Okay.
and then the book came out. So,
And
but he had always maintained the literary rights, not the dramatic rights, but the literary rights has always been with Jeff Rice. But Jeff Rice passed away, so it's with the Rice estate.
the Rice Estate. Okay, so you license it from the Rice Estate
Right.
through your company, which I found out you own Monstrous Publishing. Is that what it's called?
Monstrous Books.
Monstrous Books. Okay. And the Kolchak thing, the biggest thing you guys have published, the 50th anniversary Kolchak book.
Yeah, so far. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Um, I also saw that part of this, part of the essays you're including in this is one of which is by, like, in my opinion, the Kolchak expert, Mark Dowd.
Widziak.
Yeah, Davidziak. Thank you. It was on the tip of my tongue. He's been on my show. He's been on my show a couple times. He came
Oh,
on
okay.
because I was a huge fan of his and reached out to him when that original Kolchak book, the one that was the episode guide, I had just finally found a
Oh,
copy
yeah.
and reached out to him and said, "Hey, I'm a big fan. I love the episode guide. Come on the show." And he's like, "Absolutely." And of course, he looks like Mark Twain if you've ever seen his plays.
Yeah.
And then when the Blu-rays came out from KL Studios, he came back on as well. And I was really disappointed in KL Studios because I was really hoping he would be on more episodes. And even he was like, I was kind of disappointed they did not have me on for more of those episodes. The Kolchak, I wrote that guidebook and they had me on one episode commentary. I was like, yeah, that you got
Yeah.
that. I am not happy with that at all. Like he should have been on more of those
No,
because
I
I
mean
love that box set.
he knows everything
He
about
knows. That's why it's like, why didn't you have this
everything.
guy on more episodes of the commentaries?
Yeah. Yeah, so if
uh,
I ever have a question, I reach out to Mark, and so I wanted the book to have a profile on Jeff Rice because I don't think he gets as much credit as he deserves since he created Kolchak. Typical writer that doesn't get the credit and everyone else kind of gets the
oh, gee.
you know. So I was like,
or listen, I was at the con we were just talking about. There was somebody there, and we're remain nameless because I think this is something that needs to get addressed or whatever. But I will need the names out or whatever. And I was saying this is getting republished again. And he's like, oh, I've heard about that. And it's just like, no offense. It's like, I'm just always tired of hearing about this getting republished because me and the guys who worked on this for Marvel, we just haven't gotten anything. And I was just like, well, maybe you should reach out to the people who own the license now because I really think they're more your backyard than Marvel's. And I also showed that there's figures finally coming out based on these character designs as well. It's a very big property, like huge. And I was like, I really think you should give it another shot to try and reach out. He's like, he doesn't have the energy for it. I was just like,
yeah.
I think you deserve something from this, especially considering they're using it based on stuff you wrote.
I mean, it's a sad story, with the writer, and especially in Hollywood, you really don't get the credit, and you're
No.
like just discarded. So I mean, and I don't think Jeff had a very good time in Hollywood, and he never did anything else, movie wise or TV wise after Kolchak, and I think that was a really bad experience for him. And Mark knew him personally, and they were friends for a long time, so no one better than to write profile on Jeff. So, and Jeff had an interesting life because he was a Las Vegas reporter
Mm-hmm.
himself, and he also he grew up in Beverly Hills. His father was very wealthy, and his father ended up being a co-owner of the Dunes Hotel in Vegas, and the Dunes Hotel even shows up in Kolchak a few times. So there was some kind of I think falling out between the father and Jeff because the book is really more about corruption and the cover up and the politics, than really a vampire thing because
Mm-hmm.
it really gets more into um, them hiding the fact that there's a vampire in Vegas. So I think supposedly like then the powers that be in real life weren't happy with the book, weren't happy with Jeff and kind of like Kolchak who gets booted out of Vegas. I think Jeff really wasn't welcome there at least for a while. So he kind of like just like wrote off like his father supposedly and who had a lot of money and so he was kind of very much like Kolchak in real life, kind of like he had his standards and his his way of life that I don't think jived well with the ultra wealthy and powerful in Vegas.
Did you ever meet author C.J. Henderson?
No,
Are you
no,
familiar
no.
with who he is?
Yeah. He had done a bunch of cult. He was kind of known as like being like one of the best Kolchak
Yeah,
writers back in the day.
he was
Before
he
he
was
passed away.
he was from here in Massachusetts. The convention I just got done talking about. That's how a lot of people knew him from because he was a guest at that con for many years. Very nice guy. Very like I never met anyone who promotes himself as much as that guy did, and not in an egotistically arrogant way, but just a very like read my book. Have you read this book before? Very bombastic attitude, and just very nice. He came on the show a couple times, and then unfortunately, I think he passed away in 2009, 2010.
Oh,
He was older, heart attack, maybe. I don't 100% know. It was definitely a shock to the community. But yeah, he wrote a bunch of Kolchak stuff. I think he also wrote the story about like how does Vincenzo keep showing up in like different aspects of Kolchak's life. Like there was
Right.
this conspiracy. Like Vincenzo wasn't quite the Vincenzo you think he is because he's in like the first two movies and then he's in the show. And it's like that's all in continuity with CJ's books and things like that. And I know everyone's like, oh, this person should play Kolchak and this person should play Kolchak, and I'm like, how about no? How about we don't ever do that and we just leave it the way it is? Because we tried that once and it was terrible. And it was like, if you think it was good, god damn you, because it was terrible to watch for 2 episodes.
Yeah, but that wasn't. It really wasn't Kolchak at all.
No.
Just the name, really. Uh,
Yeah. It was just like whatever it was. But it's like, listen, unless you're going to set it actually in the 70s and make it a period piece,
right.
then okay, maybe, but I still don't want to see it. I just don't think they're going to do it right.
Yeah, I mean that's one of the things that I was very adamant about doing Kolchak stories, was that we're going to set it in the original timeline. I'm not doing Kolchak, in modern times, or Kolchak with a cell phone, Kolchak with
Right.
a computer. I don't want to make him. He would be Gen X. He'd be
Yeah.
my age, the 70s. And I'm like, no. I mean, I like the whole period thing. I like setting it in the 70s, and he's like a hard-nosed reporter, and I think that aligns well with that time period. I don't think I've had people pitch me that idea of let's reboot it and let's make Kolchak a blogger or a
Yeah.
podcaster. Like, no,
Oh,
you can't, you
lame.
can't make a podcaster a hero.
Listen, the only good sequel to
Who would
Kolchak the
believe
Night
that?
Stalker is the X. The only good sequel to Kolchak the Night Stalker is the X Files.
Yes, I mean the X Files is really
The
and I
spiritual
thought,
successor.
yeah, because
And Darren was on the X Files.
he was on the X Files. I think he was like the guy who started the X Files or something.
Yes, that's right.
Um,
Yeah, he was in the
so
flashback.
when I was rereading the book, because like I said, the book gets more into the conspiracy parts of it, and
Right.
the cover up and dealing with all the politicians and the police who want to suppress this. And that was so much the X Files, because Kolchak doesn't really delve into that later on. Every episode is a self-contained episode, and Kolchak seems to forget what happened last week, and that all these monsters keep cropping up every week or so. Once he gets to Chicago, every week there's a monster coming, that he stumbles upon, but he never puts anything together. And
Right.
there'd have to be this really wide conspiracy. There'd have to be this whole network that's trying to suppress this and make sure that the world doesn't know that all these monsters exist. And then that's the X-Files.
Right. And that was kind of brought up also in one of the short stories. There's a Kolchak collection of short stories. Like the thing is like thick as hell. And I know it's out of print because I've seen the copies go for like $150 online or whatever. And I have a copy of it. I always thought about trying to sell it, being like, I read it enough that I haven't read every story there, but I read the ones that I like, and it's fine. I don't need to hold on to it because $150 if I can get for it is pretty good. But there's a story in there where Kolchak meets Barnabas Collins, and Barnabas Collins thanks him for killing Skorzeny because of Skorzeny just being the way he was going to expose the vampires community. And Carl's really apprehensive about meeting Barnabas Collins because he figures out he's a vampire and he thinks he's going to kill him or whatever. And he's like, "No, I brought you to thank you," because Skorzeny was just a pain in our butts.
Right.
It's funny that Skorzeny would be used. That was the name of the vampire, right? Scorsese or Skorzeny?
Well, see, in the novel they give you the pronunciation, which is different from the TV movie, and it's pronounced Janusz Skorzeny.
Skorzeny, okay. And if you are a fan of anything horror of the '80s, do you remember the TV series Werewolf the Series with John J. York? My podcast, the Dead TV podcast, just got done covering it. We cover canceled television shows. And we'll never do Kolchak because it's had its own podcast. We never do shows that have a dedicated podcast to it. But we did Werewolf. We had like Stuntman on from Werewolf. We had actors. We had John on. We had we had a lot of people. We had the bad boy from Karate Kid Part 3, who also went on to be in soap operas. His first acting gig was on Werewolf the Series. He returned for Cobra Kai for like 3 episodes as well.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So, but it's again the werewolf that John is hunting on the show shares the same name as the vampire from Kolchak.
That was Chuck Connors.
Yes, correct. Yep. And then they find out that it's not actually him. It's Brian Thompson from the X Files. Go back to the X Files. They're alien bounty hunter from the X Files.
Right.
And then they, unfortunately, the show was canceled. They never wrapped up the new plot line
I
because
think
Chuck
was
had
that
a disagree. Chuck had problems with the studio, so he was like, "I'm
that the
out. I
fourth
don't want to do this
season
anymore."
of the of Fox?
Yes, it was an early Fox show, like right around the time Married with Children was starting. So 87, 88, yeah, like right when Married Children, like
That's right. And then of course the X Files was also one of the couple of years into,
93,
but
93.
like one of the, probably their first big like serious hit
Yeah.
because Fox was
Well,
they
The Simpsons,
The Simpsons, yeah, that Simpsons is about 89. So and what X Files is like 90?
93.
Oh, 93.
93.
Yeah.
So you're right. That was the first like seriously successful
Here,
show, and also one of the first shows I can remember. Again, I remember when I was a kid
21 Jump
that
Street.
had a continuity in every episode. Them mentioning, "Oh yeah, we learned that from the case that we just did," just like you just said
Yeah.
about Kolchak. You know, that would carry over to Buffy the Vampire Slayer, Supernatural, which obviously is the biggest freaking thing to run for 15 seasons, and that obviously had a lot of Kolchak into it as well. Not that I ever saw a reference to Kolchak, but it's just like you couldn't watch Supernatural with their standalone episodes that had nothing to do with God and the devil that were just like, this feels like Kolchak the Night Stalker.
Yeah. Oh, no, absolutely. Yeah, I mean Fox had a lot of crappy shows,
Oh
but they
god,
also were
yeah.
doing a lot of different stuff, and they had some really really good shows at that time. 21 Jump Street was a really good show too.
Yeah.
But the X Files, yeah, that was like, oh wow, that was just kind of like, and I don't know if the other networks passed on that or wouldn't do that, but yeah, that was like their first. Yeah, and that was the thing. I mean, Kolchak would be a very different show if it had continuity,
Mm,
and
mm.
if they dealt with that, and then you'd have to deal with all kinds of other issues.
Uh-huh.
Uh, but yeah, I mean, I see almost like Kolchak and the X Files kind of like this one
Mhm.
thing. And Chris Carter has always talked about that too, and said that was,
Oh, yeah, 100%. He
that
is
was
the inspiration to create the X
yeah.
Files, which is how I more learned about it because it was the time I watched the tape and my mom pointing it out to me and saying like the X Files, we watched the X Files together. Um, just real quick, go over some of the things you get from the Kickstarter. Do you just get the book, or are there any incentives? And what's being published in the book? You say because you talk about the essays, like again by Mark and the forward by David.
Well, yeah, you'll get the three essays, you'll get the bunch of illustrations. Anyone, if you get the hardcover, you also get the Kolchak fan club membership card, and
Oh,
on the flip side of the card is a press badge, is a Kolchak press badge. Other stuff you get, we got T-shirts now. You can get the prints of all the illustrations.
uh huh,
We have a Kolchak button. We have some of the old. We have the one shot comic from the 50th anniversary thing.
okay.
And the funny thing about that is that the cover was supposed to go with a C.J. Henderson novel years ago, but it was
Oh,
never released. I think he had died that year, so for some reason they never released it. But the 50th anniversary one shot by Dan Brereton,
mhm.
where Kolchak's standing in front of like Satan, it was never used. So I was like, this is great art. So we have to use this. So I just said, let's break out three stories from the anthology.
Okay. So those stories are in the anthology, but you're printing them as floppies themselves to go with the Kickstarter.
Yeah.
Okay,
Well, no,
gotcha.
it was offered during the previous Kickstarter for
Okay,
Kolchak, but I have a few left over, so
gotcha.
I had to get rid of them. But we
Hey, I
have
did
Steve.
that with my own Kickstarter. I had old copies of my comics that were tied to the current thing. I was
I'm
just like,
very
hey,
happy
guess
that
what?
we sold a lot of them through
Yeah,
this Kickstarter because I
there you
got
go.
in the basement. But it's got story. David Avalone did a Kolchak teen Kolchak story.
Okay,
It's like Kolchak's first story when
hmm,
he's a teenager, like 1939.
gotcha.
Steve Niles did a story, and I did a story. So it's very cool. And we have a Kolchak poster, and we have some, which has well, the poster is very cool too. That's from the 50th anniversary campaign too. But we have a list of all the episodes
Okay,
and the TV movies and the air dates.
gotcha. Awesome. It looks like a fantastic Kickstarter. You got my $40 for it for the hardcover because I wanted that identification card. I'm a big Kolchak fan. Again, I ran right out as soon as I found out K.O. Loot and Studios was putting those films out, and that I was just like, oh, I need those right away. I actually gifted the DVDs that I had, the old DVDs, to my mom for Christmas one year. So,
Okay.
so I made sure they went off to a proper Kolchak fan, the one who introduced me to it. So, But hey, we would. I mean, you already had massive success with it, so hopefully, you know what I mean. There's people lingering in the wait to come into the last minute of the Kickstarter. We've got like 10 days left to go after we air this. So, James, thank you so much for coming on the show, and thank you for continuing to carry the torch about Kolchak the Night Stalker, which I think becomes more popular as younger fans discover this older show. I mean, for the fact that to have this kind of release, I don't see this happening for like Bionic Woman or $6 Million Man. The Incredible Hulk's got, comic books or whatever, but the TV show, oh, we got a statue coming, soon, which is one of the first big things happening. But honestly, not a lot of shows like this get this kind of treatment like Kolchak the Night Stalker does. I mean, you could say the Twilight Zone gets reinvented, but it's not like this. You know what I mean? So it's definitely great to see Kolchak getting this kind of like renewed interest with younger people. So
Yeah, I mean the Kolchak fandom is alive and well, and it's really doing well. And Kolchak might be more popular now than it's ever been.
oh, it definitely seems like it.
Yeah.
So that definitely seems like it. And again, it was the highest grossing made for TV movie of all time until like the Roots came along or something like that, right?
Yeah, I mean
But that was a mini series, so
that was a
that's
mini,
very different.
yeah. But at the time, I mean, TV movies were kind of new at the time. It was
Mm-hmm.
1972. But they said reportedly 75 million people tuned in to see The Night Stalker.
I'll believe that until someone proves otherwise.
That's like Super Bowl numbers. That's
Yeah,
you know.
and if there wasn't anything to watch in 1972 other than politics, then yeah, I'll believe those numbers. So, but
Yeah.
thank you, James, so much for coming on the show.
Thank you. This is a lot of fun.